Well, good morning again, everybody. Welcome to the Team Excellence Call. This is Lynn Gardner calling in from absolutely perfect Virginia this morning. You know, after lots of rain, it's so good to see some sunshine again. Yesterday, today, I'm really a happy camper. It's a good thing I know that God doesn't plan on flooding the entire earth again, because with all the rain the U.S. is getting all across the board, it would make me wonder if I didn't know the truth. You know, there's a lot going on around here. The routine stuff, you know, just it comes with the season, trying to keep up with everything around the farm, and then there's the additional side of prep work for the event that's just around the corner for us. October 11th through 13th is an event you won't want to miss. You know, it's an event like no other, believe me, and you just have to see it for yourself. It's hard to describe, but we're so honored to have again Romy and Rose Verdera. We have Tamia and Tony coming, Earl and Cherie Stevens, Lisa Allagood, Bill Powers, and a few surprises for you. They'll be training with heart, and there's no doubt your business, your life will never be the same again. So go to livingwatersfarmevent.com and check it out. And while you're at it, when you make your plans, be sure to add a little time there to see all the sites, you know, because while you're here, you're short distance to Washington, D.C., to the battlegrounds at Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, to the Baltimore Harbor, we have 40 wineries in our county, you know, that's all within short distance. So sightsee until your heart's content and write it off. What a great way to make a living. You know, it comes as no surprise to you, I'm sure, that I like a few sports. I'm not a sports hound. I don't like all of them, but I like a few of them. And you all know by now that I like baseball. It's my favorite. And this time of year, I would be so busy 6 days a week as I carted my two all-star player sons from practice to play. We had practice 5 days a week. We had games all day Saturday. And believe it or not, I didn't think I'd survive those years, but I really miss those days. And I'm looking forward to the next generation of baseball players. You know, I also like trivia. And I stumbled upon some baseball trivia that actually I had forgotten about. And as I was reading through it again, it inspired me for your call today, entitled, "Will You Still Go the Distance When the Target Moves?" You know, before the pitcher's mound was introduced in 1893, there was a 4-foot wide, 5.5-foot long box on flat ground. It was called the pitcher's box. You know, and in 1893, in order to create more offense, the box was replaced with a raised mound and a rubber slab 12 inches long, and it was relocated from 45 feet from home to 60.5 feet from home. So there was a lot of change up there, right? The extra distance was significant as it cut down the angle of the pitches, and the league batting average spiked 35 points in 1893 and another 29 points in 1894. It's fascinating, and all came down to strategy. And the leagues became even more profitable as the game got more interesting, right? And with the points that changed, all because of the mound and the distance, all came down to strategy. Well, you know what? You know, if you've never tuned into baseball for reasons of your own, you probably never considered the stamina, the strength it takes to pitch a ball any distance at all. But there's no doubt in my mind that when the distance changed up from 45 feet to 60.5 feet, all the players at the time were challenged. I'm not sure how fast they were throwing the ball back then. It's actually dramatically changed over the years. In fact, just from 2002, the average pitch ball was 88 miles an hour, and the average speed of the ball pitched in 1992 was 92 miles an hour. Wow, it's crazy, right? Athletes are conditioned not to quit. They don't ever quit. Their heads in the game. They put in years and years and years of conditioning. Nothing would make them quit. And we stand a lot to learn from them because of it. No doubt every pitcher honed in on their pitch, and they practice and practice to keep their precision going while they push that distance from 45 feet to 60.5 feet. But what do we do when we're faced with the same thing? When our target gets pushed out by a few feet, do we go to work and just work a little harder, or do we take our ball and go home? Unfortunately, when that target gets moved by rule changes or qualification changes or whatever, the world begins to whine. You know, some people ignore the changes and they'll focus on the positive somewhat, but they show no signs of being motivated to regroup to pitch the distance. They're just pretty much complacent. They stay in the game, but they're complacent. Some people whine about the changes to everyone willing to listen, and sadly, the whiners are usually the one not even pitching a ball or swinging a bat. Some people, the entrepreneurs, if you will, they refuse to quit. They evaluate those changes. They don't panic. They set their strategy based on the changes and the challenges, and they start pitching almost immediately so that they can build their endurance. They're team players, and they love the game, just like an athlete. There's nothing that will make them quit. You know, I've told the story before about my youngest when he was finally old enough to qualify to play Little League. He was so thrilled. He had been waiting since birth pretty much. He had hours and hours of baseball experience with his brother, who's just 2 years older than he is. They played imaginary baseball games. I don't even know how they did it, just the two of them, and they somehow kept up with players and runs, and somebody won. I don't know how they did it. But when he was 5 and finally old enough to play Little League, you know, real baseball, as he called it, the rules changed and the conditions were pushed back. And instead of coach pitch, he had to begin with T-ball. And let me tell you something, that little, very, very experienced little player was mad as a hornet, and he tried to push against the changes. He tried to fight back with them, right? But the rules are the rules. And that one lesson set him in motion for a positive baseball experience all the way through high school and then off into the military. He learned that the rules apply to everybody. And he learned just to push a little bit harder when the conditions were set back. He ultimately became that all-star player, always willing to stretch when the conditions change. The play conditions are unknown when the game schedules are set, no matter if you're talking Little League or Major League Baseball. The schedule's set, but the conditions will change. Sometimes it's cold, sometimes it's hot, sometimes the wind blows so hard it actually carries the ball past the target. Sometimes it rains just enough to make the ball slippery, while not enough to shut down the game. The conditions are forever changing. You can control that schedule, but you can't always control the conditions. Sometimes a player gets injured and they have to sit out a game or two, or unfortunately sometimes a season. And all the players do their part to pick up the slack for the team. There's no difference in our world, folks. Our conditions change almost every day. Our personal conditions, our results, our challenges, and sometimes the target gets moved a little bit. Until we start pitching, we don't show for sure what we're going to face. But too many people look at that distance, like it's like the distance between the Grand Canyon, you know, the distance of 45 feet to 60.5 feet, and they sit on the bench instead of putting in the work it takes to build the endurance to pitch that ball and swing that bat. Plenty of people had dreams to play baseball one day. Some of them actually works against the flow. They didn't like the rules. Rule didn't apply to them, and they just couldn't stay with the team. They didn't make it long because of their attitude. Some put in a little half-hearted effort, but they didn't make it to the All-Stars, just kind of played around with baseball. Some of them refused to build the endurance for the bigger field. You know, the field size changes as they get older, right? And they refused to put in the endurance that it took to be successful on a bigger playing field in their double digits. And you know what? Some didn't try at all. Their dream was just a wish list, and there was no action behind it. They never picked up a glove or a bat. They never ran the bases. They never played the game. So what kind of baseball player are you? You know, do you take your ball and go home when the target moves just a little bit? Do you start looking at that distance of 45 feet to 60.5 feet and consider it the Grand Canyon something you can't possibly accomplish? Or do you accept the conditions that sometimes they change, but the game goes on? Only you can answer that. I know from where I sit, I see a whole lot more people sitting on the bench by choice than I do people willing to stretch every muscle to pick up the slack whenever it's necessary. You know, the Bible covers that. It says, therefore, I do not run like someone running aimlessly. I do not fight like a boxer beating the air. No, I strike a blow to my body, and I make it a slave, so that after I preach to others, I myself will not be disqualified the prize. No matter where you're going or what your goals are, sitting on a bench is never okay. It's not an option. Not in relationships. You know, if you sit on a bench in a relationship, you don't have a relationship. You got a horrible situation. If you sit on the bench with your children, you have a train wreck. You're going to just raise a bunch of, you know, wayward kids. If you sit on the bench in your faith, you will never be the person God intends for you to be, and certainly not in our business. You sit on a bench in a business, and you won't just not succeed. You'll be a total failure. If you want to win, you have to play the game. And if you want to succeed, you have to be willing to adapt to the distance. I hope you're not letting life slip by while you sit on the bench. You know, God expects more of you than that. Your relationships expect and deserve more of you than that. Your children certainly deserve more of you than that. You should expect more of yourself than that. Not too long ago, I visited a drive-through at Chick-fil-A for coffee. I know it sounds funny, but if I want a cup of coffee and I'm on the run, I like giving them my money, right? When I ordered the coffee, they said they had to brew a fresh pot, and that was music to my ears. I pulled up to wait for the coffee, where you have that little landing zone, right? And I was patiently waiting because I was happy the coffee was fresh. And you know what? The manager is the one, probably the owner actually. He met me with that cup of coffee at my car, and I was thrilled and thanked him, and I was so happy to wait. And when I told him so, he said, I'm capable of so much more. I will never forget that. The heart of a champion. The manager or owner coming out to the car basically apologized and not accepting that, saying, I'm capable of more than that. He desired to play the game with excellence, if you will, and he was willing to stretch, to go the distance, no matter the conditions. So what's it going to be for you? I hope you suit up. And I hope you keep pitching. No matter what that distance looks like, you can reach it if you just work on your endurance. And I hope that you'll convince yourself that the condition challenges are just another opportunity to be a person of excellence, the one that perseveres, the one that never quits that race, the one willing to do whatever you can do to play the game with excellence and never quit, the one that's a team player and picks up the slack when it's necessary for the team, right? I hope I've driven home the message for you today with a simple analogy from one of my favorite things, baseball, and it's just a little bit of trivia that went on with it. That's always the goal for me. Now, go make it a great day. You guys get off that bench, build your endurance. I know what's possible for you. There's everything in the world is possible if you just want to work hard for it and you'll push yourself, to that place of pain, so that you can reach the distance. I'll see you guys at the top. I'll see you next week. You'll make it a blessed day. Take care. Bye-bye.